Schaus and Associates sponsored content webinar. This webinar today is brought to you by Unanet.
Yes, excited to be part of this webinar. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to attend this. Those of you on the East Coast, I know it's kind of a lunchtime thing, so we were going to dive right in here. So great to be here. My name is Josh Kramer. I work on the customer experience side of Unanet's AI products, meaning I spend the bulk of my time figuring out what the market needs and really helping tailor our products and our technology to those and build solutions around that. With me, I've got Matt Simonson. Matt Simonson is our product management lead for our product and our go-to-market strategy for our AI solutions. And we're going to be spending the time today taking you through some best practices for using AI through the BD and capture proposal lifecycle. Before we get started, I did want to talk about kind of navigating the screen that you see here. On the right-hand side, there should be a toolbar. If you have any questions throughout, of course, we're going to have time for questions at the end, but please also feel free to drop them in that question section there. It might be kind of an uncollapsed or a collapsed column right now. So if you click the little arrow next to it, it should drop that down. You can drop in questions that you might have as we go through. We encourage it because if there's something you want to talk about in the first 5 minutes and you have to wait to the end, we don't want to lose that train of thought. Matt and I are pretty experienced doing these things. So we'll see those questions. We'll weave the answers in as we're going through, or you can wait till the end to include them as well. So don't be shy about asking questions as we go throughout. So with that, I want to dive into the agenda that we have here. Really wanted to talk about kind of 5 key areas here that whether you're using a tool that Unanet provides or something similar, or just a tool that you're testing out, kind of dipping your toe in the water of AI, using AI within your BD and capture life cycles. We really want you to be able to walk away with things that you can action within your own team. So we're definitely going to focus on that. We're going to talk about the AI acceptance kind of across the marketplace, what we've seen, where we see trends going, using your information to help across that BD and capture life cycle, whether it's on the market intel side, developing proposals, things like that. We're going to talk about some good prompting techniques. Matt and I spend a lot of our day figuring out kind of what good looks like and learning what good doesn't look like. So we're going to share the best practices that we've learned from there. And of course, figuring out how to help that scale across your organization as you're doing that. And then of course, you're going to hear this, and I tell everyone that attends the webinars that Matt and I do, we always talk about human in the loop, meaning, what is the role of the humans playing side by side with the AI, and how to make that, how to maximize the benefits of both. We're a big proponent of that, so we're going to cover that off too as we go through. So with that, I want to dive into some of the kind of the first piece here about the government and government contracting marketplace. Matt, you want to take that?
Yep. Thank you, Josh. So everyone from the inception of when AI came to the marketplace using ChatGPT or Claude always wondered is, will the government actually allow me to use these types of solutions for my business? Over the past year, I think it's pretty safe to say yes. The government has made multiple agreements with large language model providers such as Claude, OpenAI, to actually use the solutions internally within government. Agencies are formalizing agreements with these AI vendors, and if you guys look at the PE and VC space, specifically for AI solutions for GovCons, it's actually growing. I believe around $120 million was invested last year into new solutions that harness AI for business development needs. And on the GovCon side, that kind of is actually showing true too. Next slide, Josh. Is showing because the usage of AI across GovCons is actually increasing year over year. So it's not just the business development teams who are using it to write their proposals and find new opportunities, which is what we're going to cover today. It's also finance and accounting and project teams.
So I think one of the things that I've seen, again, Matt and I, we get the benefit of really kind of getting to play close to a lot of you folks in the marketplace that are like, hey, I've got growth goals for 2026. We all know 2025 was not a planned year, a lot of unpredictability in there, but now it's, how do we capture maybe what has pushed to the right that is now in our pipeline, plus our 2026 pipeline, plus planning for 2027, 2028, and things like that. So a lot of our organizations are really pivoting to, how do I deploy and find efficiencies inside my team when I don't know exactly when I want to hire more headcount, right? We all know it's unpredictable right now. So many organizations are looking and saying, all right, I know these AI tools are out there. Where can I plug them in that's actually going to give me the efficiencies I need or that I want, where it's actually going to have a very quick ROI? we tell organizations, just simply grabbing a subscription of a tool for one individual on your team isn't enough. If you really want to explore where AI sits across that life cycle, we view it as very much, okay, there's a lot of components inside finding an opportunity all the way from winning that work. There's a lot of kind of, I'd say, challenges or many times silos of data that exist inside the workflow there, as you can see on the screen, that either hey, a lot of my institutional knowledge sat with a few folks, they've maybe moved on. How do I make sure that I'm not dependent on just a couple people in my organization? All the way to, okay, these RFPs are coming out a whole lot faster than I expect. We've got 7-day turns, 14-day turns on ops that I'm aware of and I'm ahead of, but I'm still haven't finalized my teaming partners. I still haven't figured out, kind of the last minute things I need to prepare for that. How do I finish that off, but also get my proposal out the door? So there's a lot of opportunity to plug in, because we all know that opportunity pursuits, that life cycle is getting shorter, that capture window is getting shorter. And it's, well, okay, I've got to move as fast as the market wants me to. And what does that look like for me individually here?
So if you don't have enough opportunities in your pipeline, then you won't be able to use AI across your capture lifecycle. Ensuring a good pipeline is paramount. And if you're an SMB, you usually don't have a time to comb through all the different market intel sites to identify different opportunities. You're obviously going to miss some as a 1 to 2 man army, but if you were to incorporate AI, you can expand beyond just that SAM.gov, looking at different award sites, pulling opportunity info automatically. And because AI can understand your data, it can automatically cherry pick the opportunities that are best fit for your business. The first thing that you need to do is you need to get a solution where you can upload all of your data. That includes past proposals, marketing materials, capability statements, project information, SME interviews, and technical documentation. This is going to feed the AI to automatically identify the right projects for your business. And when I say right projects, that's projects that have the best chance of winning, that can grow your business, that is outside the scope. So say you go after normally one contract type, but there's actually other contract types that you can go after that would expand your revenue. And it's also going to be equitable projects. If you're not bidding on equitable projects and you're losing money on projects, guaranteed you're not going to be in business long. If you were to
take that one, Matt.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I wanted to include that in there because it's been something that's been coming up with organizations that we've seen, is really being and looking at not just opportunities you want to go after, but which ones have actually given you that increase in kind of that bottom line. Like, we all know that there's projects that we win and then it turns out really hard to deliver on, right? It's been maybe the 3rd or 4th iteration on that program. And the challenge is making sure that you have the resources that you need, to deliver on those. Many times things will push to the right, or the government's not paying as fast, things like that. Being able to take into account not just, hey, this looks like an opportunity that looks like other ones I've gone after, but actually which ones have been the most profitable for my business is a great piece. I didn't mean to cut in on their Matt, but it's something I had a conversation with a client yesterday on, that it's got full, not just that pursuit life cycle, but that business view that you need to incorporate in here.
So if we jump to the next slide, we actually have an example of what this would look like. Like, instead of having to sift through multiple different tabs, multiple different award sites where you have different filters set, there should be one centralized view that understands your business and pulling in information from different award sites, agencies, and telling you what the set aside is like, or when the due date is, with all the information possible. It should serve you up those awards that you should be going after. According to market metrics, successful GovCons have a 3 to 7 times annual pipeline revenue coverage. If you're a 1-man shop, a 2-man shop, that's very hard to do. But if you have a solution like this, that's automatically going to serve opportunities, on a daily and weekly basis, you're actually able to do that. One thing that is really important with AI is explainability. I'm sure a lot of you guys haven't been able, if you can actually flip to that back slide, Josh, for 1 sec.
Yep.
Is explainability. If you, no worries. A little bit of lag here.
Yep, sorry about that.
No worries. It's the one before with the screenshot of the market intel.
Yep.
Yep, perfect. So if you see here, when we highlight over high relevance, looks like we're having a little of technical difficulties.
Sorry about that. No, it's just a bit like, so just talk over it, Matt.
So a big thing is, like, you don't want black box AI. Black box AI is essentially spitting out an answer without knowing how it came to that conclusion. Good AI solutions are always going to have an explanation or a full chain of thought associated with its output. So here on the screen, once you see we hit software development capabilities and you apply that criteria, it's actually going to show you high relevant opportunities with a reason as to why it's a match. This is really important to make sure that a human always remains in the loop, which we're going to cover later, because you got to trust the AI to give you the right answers, and you need to know how to explain yourself if you choose AI to actually get your business up and running.
Yeah, this is one of the things that I really like, Matt, is kind of, and again, we're going to talk more human in the loop as we get to the end here, but the engines are constantly learning from what you put into it. Just like you see on the screen here, being able to say, okay, this is a good fit, but why? We all know in this marketplace that one opportunity doesn't look like the other, right? There's different things. There's services components, products components, how they release it. Every agency has their own uniqueness. And what you want to do is not only, review and assess what an engine's pulling forward and presenting to you, but really assessing, okay, why is this a good fit, and helping teach that engine so that it learns long term and can find more opportunities that might be not on the surface level ones that you'd be like, hey, this is a good fit for me, but then realize once you read the PWS or the recompete information that, hey, this is actually in my wheelhouse. It's just kind of labeled a little bit differently than I would have expected, by having a tool that not only says, hey, this is a good op for you, but that you can interact with and really train, is where you want to be as you're looking at AI tools here. All right, so that takes us to the proposal area here that we really wanted to talk about too. This is really something here that, as we're looking at, kind of, hey, we found that opportunity, we know what we want to do with it, we really want to tailor what that looks like. How do we then take all that stuff from the performance work statement, the statement of work, the amendments, the RFQ, all those key details, and actually turn them into opportunities that we want to pursue and write to. That's really where AI plays a really strong role as well. Things like reading, what are the requirements, when does it do, all the eval criteria, that's 101 level for sure. But then looking at, okay, where does this opportunity come from? What's been the past performance data from the previous contract, or a contract that looks and feels like it? What type of key personnel should we be having on this? And from there, kind of figuring out, okay, now I want to build my response and position for it. What does that look like as we go to pursue that? So we all know proposals, they are a very manual exercise across the board. It's always a big lift in terms of, what's actually in the RFI or the RFP or the RFQ that I'm going after. We all know the government, when they're in session, love to drop off solicitations on Thursday afternoons, right? And with a 7-day turn, if your team doesn't have that go, no go immediately on a Friday, then you're looking at like a Monday, and all of a sudden you're doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on a turn that might be a good fit for you. So with that shrunken timeline, it's really important to say, okay, how do we get through these solicitations and read them faster to see if it's going to be a good fit for us? But then also that, again, most important piece of proposals, that understanding the compliance piece. If we do put a proposal together, how are we going to make sure that's compliant? We all know we've all pulled up our Excel spreadsheets, put the requirements on one side, map to the section that you had to review, things like that. That is a very manual task. I've done that for the bulk of my career. I don't enjoy doing that, but it's critical, because nothing's worse than losing out on a deal because you didn't say that everyone on your team is going to be a U.S. citizen or something like that. That just gets you disqualified. So it's always a big lift. It's always a big lift to do compliance and make sure that you're putting in a good response. And of course, outlining. I know a lot of people do compliant outlines and try to combine the two. I get that, but it is also a very big time lift. So the way we view it is, now's the time to be looking at AI tools, or looking at kind of perfecting the tools you might have to really help through a lot of this manual effort here, because of things like the time to do the RFI, to the time to do the RFP, and the overall response across the board is still a decent sized lift. And you want to get those tools deployed, because again, it's with such unpredictability inside kind of what is 2026 going to look like compared to 2025. It can be hard for organizations to know when to pull and add in that new BD resource or that marketing team member, that proposal lead, to help with those things. So getting the tools humming and going for your team, early on is really important. So Matt, I'm actually going to flip this one to you, because I think you talk about RAG and Gen AI much better than me. If you couldn't kind of build out kind of the understanding around this stuff here.
Yeah, so I think everyone is probably at this moment of time in 2026 familiar with generative AI. I think back 2024 and 2025, it was actually the most used word in business according to LinkedIn. But what a lot of people don't know is there's actually a layer in between generative AI and the output that you're using AI to produce, and that's called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG for short. If you think of like generative AI as like the huge large language model where you type a prompt in and you get any answer from the web using large amounts of data, retrieval augmented generation makes it a little bit more personal. Think about how with ChatGPT you can upload different pieces of content that describe you. Say you want to develop like an assistant for Mr. Josh. Maybe I talk to Josh and I do an interview with him and I ask him all things Josh. I download that transcript, I upload it into ChatGPT, and then I start saying like, I want to do things like Josh does. Retrieval augmented generation is how ChatGPT is actually going to pull from those pieces of content to make it specific to the output that you want. The thing that you really need to focus on, though, is making sure that you have the right data dependent on your outcome. Since this is for business development, previous proposals, project data, personnel information, and really anything associated with your business that thinks that you can use to paint your business in a positive light would be beneficial. But the number one thing that you need to focus on if you're using ChatGPT is effective prompting. As you can see here, I prompted, write a super sweet proposal using my library. As you could probably guess, that output is going to get you garbage. If you flip to the next screen, that's what your face is going to look like if you're actually looking at something with a bad prompt. So Josh and I are about to jump into a ChatGPT exercise for prompt engineering, but first he's going to show you what effective prompting looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I had this conversation yesterday with in another presentation where I talked to folks and I said, we really see kind of three pools of people when it comes to AI and using it inside the organization. Actually, I met a fourth one who said, I retire in 12 months, Josh, I'm not figuring this out. So hopefully no one on this call is in that category, but you typically have the person who's like, hey, everyone's saying AI, I need to figure it out, but when I go in and I put in some simple prompts, I don't really like the output. Maybe the technology is not mature. I don't want to deal with it until it's mature. Those are the people that will typically, in a toggle back here, land in and kind of use a prompt like this, right? Hey, I put something in there, or maybe I put something too complex, and they're like, hey, I didn't like the output. I don't have time to learn this. I got a busy day to day. Then you kind of have that second category of folks that know that it's out there, know that they need to adopt it because people on the left and the right of them are adopting it, but they don't really know where to start. And we're going to talk about how to do that with prompting here, because it is a lot of times, and I tell folks, it's great to learn from experts, kind of what best practices are, and we're going to talk about that here in a sec. But it's also really important to go test it out yourself. You need to be able to see, what are you going to get back? Is it good? How can you improve it and change it? And I tell folks, probably the most skeptical ones of AI in terms of the output and the content that's going to be generated are the ones that like it the best. Because once they get in a groove and know, hey, I don't like the way this is written, or I didn't like this assessment, do another assessment of something, they get very specific about what they're asking. We're going to talk about that here in a sec with prompting to get the output that they want. And then probably the third category of people is, I got to do all things AI. I got to figure out how to work it in there. So hopefully as we go through this, all three categories of you folks that might be in those pools, we'll find value of this as we go through. So let's talk about prompting here. So these are, kind of things that I've learned along the way. I actually lean on Matt to kind of learn about kind of new ways to get prompting down right. But there's kind of key components of prompting. So when I say the word prompting, think I'm telling the engine, whatever tool I'm using, to do something that I want it to do. I tell folks, be specific, but don't overdo it. Meaning treat it as someone that, you want them to go do a task for you, but you don't want to give them a 17 line item list of things to do. So in this case, maybe I'm writing a proposal, right? I want my AI engine to understand my customer, right? We don't want some generic output. So we want it to know who our customer is. I want it to know that it's going to help me solve some type of problem or something inside the solicitation. So I want it to feed that information and give me an analysis back of like, yeah, this is something that, I understand the problem and here's how you would solve it. And then I really want to talk about the objectives or whatever I'm trying to solve for inside that prompt. So things like, and we got a great example here. So maybe I want to draft an executive summary that I want to address to a certain customer, a certain department. I want to be able to bring in all that contextual knowledge. I want to know about that department. I want to know what an executive summary is. You want the engine to know those things. And I want to really write about a specific solution in there. So think of your prompting as, here's the command that I'm giving the engine to help it give an answer back to whatever I'm telling it to do. So level deeper of that looks like this. So think of it as, I don't want to just give it some explicit answer, build me a project management plan, or what are my team's qualifications. I want to get a really good output, right? Especially, back to the ones that are very kind of skeptical of this. This is right up your alley. I don't want just some kind of basic output. I want to get really granular about what I want. So think of this prompt here. So if I gave it, hey, give me a detailed project management plan, and I've done that, and you get some generic stuff back that it's like, yeah, I looked at the PMP organization. Here's some basics of a good project management plan, timeline, deliverables, milestones. And if I want a really good output that I want to put in a proposal or in capture documents, I'm not going to love that output, right? So I want to take it to that level deeper and say, give me this project management plan that includes all those things, but tailor it to a cyber type solution or for this specific department. That granularity will get you the output that you want. And I tell folks, be selfish. If that output's only 80% of what you want, look at what you want to improve. Maybe it's the tone, maybe it's the style. You have the opportunity to then prompt that to get it to a level deeper or to that output that you want by giving it another prompt and stacking on top of each other. So be explicit. The ones that get frustrated with AI are the ones that are typically vague about what they want. You can also then take it down a level many times and just say, not only do I want an output for this, but I also want to really focus on kind of how it reads to my end user. Whether it's through formatting, I want it to be structured a certain way through a table, bullets, whatever the case may be, or maybe I want it in a certain tone. I've actually started doing this in some proposals where maybe I'm writing to a specific audience or specific program managers in that audience. I'll actually have the AI engine look at their information and say, okay, this is a contracting officer and this is a program manager. What's their background? What's their role? What's their priorities in the solicitation? I want my engine to be really informed about who I'm writing to. So when it goes to help me write, it's going to write in a tone and style that would appeal to them. So many times, we've all seen, kind of first passes, high level, especially when AI first came out, you get a lot of robusts and marketing jargon and things like that. No one wants to read that. So it's how to actually take it down that level. So not only can you tell the engine what to do and how to do it, you can also really structure how you want it to sound, how you want it to look, and of course, how granular you want it to get inside the details with prompting. Now, there are folks that get really good at this, that are able to get to advanced prompting. These are probably the folks that are in that third category that are like, hey, I want to use AI for every single thing in my day-to-day. We tell people, we have people that use our tools for like emails and social media blogs and things like that, just because they like it to be able to pull from their knowledge and write. So as you get more comfortable with it, there's these tactics that you see here on the screen. You can get really specific about maybe you want a chain of thought. I like doing that for technical solutions. We're doing this type of infrastructure with this type of solution. Please detail the benefit to the customer. Please write this to a requirement, things like that. But if you're just getting started, get really comfortable with the prompting. Get critical of the output. Get used to turning around and making that output read the way you want it to. And then you can start to apply a lot of these things here. Again, these are ones that you can test out on your own, but I'm a big fan of the chain of thought one. I'm a big fan of the using the context window one to really make sure that the engine has a good understanding of who I'm writing to, what I'm writing about, and really not only writing to the requirement, but what makes my organization unique and stand out to that competitive market there. All right. By the way, before we hop into the ChatGPT exercise here, if you guys have any questions as you've gone through, feel free to also drop them just as a reminder inside the chat, inside the WebEx here. So what we're going to do now is actually hop into a tool. This is not our tool, but it's one that Matt and I are both very familiar with inside ChatGPT to share some best practices on how to evaluate opportunities or build out proposal responses and things like that through those prompting techniques that we just covered off. So give me one sec to toggle my screen here. All right. So from there, what we want to do is really kind of show some best practices of using prompting inside a ChatGPT tool like this. There's many out there. You might say, Josh, I use Claude, I use Gemini, all that. We picked this one because it's pretty well known. I've got the most familiarity with it. What I wanted to do first was actually evaluate some opportunities inside the pipeline here. So give me one sec here as I pull those out. And really show off kind of what the capabilities of kind of getting comfortable with prompting will help you do. So probably first and foremost, what I love AI for is to read all the solicitation documents for me. So please provide a summary of the solicitation and what is needed for a proposal response. Most of my career, folks, I've spent figuring out if the op's a good fit or not for the businesses I've supported. That means reading through the docs. It's not the 2000s anymore where everyone puts them in nice CLNM structure. You're hunting inside, what feels like FAR clauses, little mention of like, oh yeah, here's the submission instructions in a paragraph. So I spent a lot of my time going through and saying, all right, what's in here? How do I need to respond? What's the structure? I love using AI for this to do a lot of that grunt work. Of course, yes, I'm always checking the docs to make sure that, it's pulling correctly and all of that. But I like to do the lift of reading through the 17 attachments I get. In this case, I only got two attachments, but there was one I was actually tempted to drop in here that had like 9. But I just wanted to show this as an example because I think this is a great opportunity for a lot of the BD folks out there to let it do a lot of the heavy lifting up front for you. Again, if I'm going to go take this to my boss and say, hey, I want to go after this, I want to start capture planning, of course, I want to make sure that I'm capturing everything that's needed. But I really like that it's going to do that lift for me to read the docs and help me assess this. Now, I'm not going to do this live here, but what I also love to do is then turn around and say, all right, now that I know what's inside this opportunity, let me actually put in information that's my own. Again, we'll talk about security here and all that here in a sec. But what I really like to do is make sure that not only does it have a good understanding of solicitation, but also an understanding of me as an organization. So that way, if I'm evaluating this opportunity, hey, am I a good fit? Is this something I want to go after? It's got that context window that Matt talked about of, hey, here's a solicitation, but also I've got an understanding of you as a business. Because then from there, I'm going to put in something generic here. I love to go strengths and weaknesses. So I'll say, we'll put something random in here. My company does cyber services. What would be some strengths? Time to this out, or something like that, where I love to get an assessment of how my business matches up. Where are we strong to bid on this, but also where are we weak? Am I technology deficient? Am I missing something that, when I go to bid, I'm going to look as kind of a weakness to the other side, as they're evaluating my bid. So I always love to do, before I start building a response or anything like that, to do an assessment of where I'm positioned and what that looks like. Again, when it comes to giving it those prompts to engineer, you can see that I'm not giving it something massive. I'm not writing it a story. Give my strengths and weaknesses, build me an outline, write me a 25-page response. That's because AI, that's a very large context window that it has to comb through and pull that information from. I like to give it little bites. So in this case, I'm doing an assessment of what my organization looks like compared to this opportunity. But then I'm like, say, maybe this is a great fit. Maybe this is something I then flip to my team. What I can do is not just say, hey, John, Matt, Mike, something we want to go after, let's do it. I can turn around and say, hey guys, we've got this opportunity. We've been tracking it. We did an RFI. I think it's a good fit, and here's why. So now I can turn around and rather than having to kind of write from scratch and give them an assessment or just say, hey man, trust me, kind of back in the old days that a lot of kind of capture reviews went. Now I can actually turn around and say, here's why it's a good fit, without having to spend hours of writing that up or having to convince them. It's like, hey, here's a good fit. So they can do that same assessment on their side and say, hey, green light, keep going after this, or whatever the case may be. Now, I typically do that a lot, kind of quick turn, things that might pop up that are bluebirds. But then from there, I also love to let it start to build the response for me. So I'll say, please help me outline. I say please all the time, just personal preference. Please help me outline a response to this solicitation. Now you'll see that I said, let's do an outline first. Why I do that is if I said, do an outline, write me a section, build a compliance matrix, we're back to kind of what I just said, was if you give it too big of a context window for it to handle, it's going to struggle. And why that is a lot of these tasks are time blocked on the end. If I gave it 43 things to do at once and whatever tool you're using doesn't have a time block, it would run and run and run, and you'd use a lot of their AI GPUs, things like that. So most of these tasks are all time blocks. So that's why I give it kind of small bites. So I know that it can do that full task and give me a good output. When we talk about other tools, purpose-built tools, which we're going to do here in a sec, there are tools out there that are not time blocked, where you don't have to give it little bites, that because they're purpose-built for the market, you can avoid that. But if you're using a tool like this, now I'm getting a good, hey, I've got a good compliance matrix coming up. I've got a good technical approach, what to cover off. And now as a user, I can then turn around and say, all right, I've got my Word doc on the right. I've got my chat tool on the left. Now I can start to build my outline. And I can say, okay, inside this outline, here's what I want to talk about and respond to. And because I did the assessment up on the top of what a good fit is, and now it has an understanding of what my company does, now I can actually start to structure and respond to that document to make sure that I'm building the response that I want, and then it reads the way I want it to. Again, I don't have to refeed it things because it already has an understanding of this is the solicitation and this is the organization that's bidding on it. Now, do I recommend continually feeding things as you go to build out your response that starts to write sections? Absolutely. The more context that has to understand you, the information that's unique to you, and why you deliver your services or your product the way that you do, the more that write-up is going to look and feel like you. And you can get very specific. Hey, I don't want to just answer the mail that we can host in a FedRAMP high IL5 environment. Tell them why we do it and what's unique about kind of our capability in there, so that we can get a really good written narrative about what good looks like inside that response that you build. So again, as you've seen, I've just done a few prompts here, figure out the opportunity, do an assessment against kind of our organization, help me start to outline. But you can get really granular at any of those steps too to get the outputs that you want. But a lot of it does come from that familiarity and comfortability with prompting. And if anyone comes to you and says, hey, I'm the prompts me for any organization or any industry, I always meet that with skepticism. Because I find that it takes a lot of practice to figure out what works best for you. And by going in there and prompting and putting those questions, you'll learn that as you go. So again, take back some of these best practices here for whatever you're doing in terms of, inside your own tools, but also keep in mind that there might be your own perception or take of the output that you want to tailor a certain way. Don't be shy in doing that. Trial by error, get in there, ask the questions. And if you give it those little bites along the way, maybe I didn't like this outline, I can go back and say, all right, well, I didn't like the way this outline came out. Maybe it doesn't have enough information about me. I can literally go back to that step, change that, fix that where it started to go off the rails, and then get the kind of the process and the output that I want anyway. So don't be shy in getting into a tool like this, getting familiar with prompting, and then more importantly, make sure you give it little bites as you go through, so you can always audit trail to see where you got, when kind of got the output that you got. And if you don't like it, audit trail back to figure out where you want to change and tweak things as you go. All right, so that is the ChatGPT piece here. Again, on our team, we absolutely love talking about different ways to prompt, how to prompt better. I'm constantly learning from Matt here. I don't want to keep plugging him, guys, but he's when it comes to prompting and all that, really good, really comfortable with it. And I think one of the things that we kind of find is when it comes to the prompting, it's constantly evolving. Don't do it in a silo. If something's working for you, share it with your team. If you find that your team has things working for them, don't be shy in asking, hey, what's working for you guys? So then that way you're always getting that good output that you want kind of across the board there. Now, we showed you a tool that sits inside kind of a commercial tool. You got $20, or there's even a free version. You can go and take advantage of a tool like that and other ones that are similar. But inside of here, we always tell folks, especially all industries, yes, GovCon, I think it's kind of hyper focused, especially as we're looking towards CMMC, how do you protect your data, things like that. So be very mindful of the tools that you use, security protocols around them, because it's really important to look at some of these things here, such as, if I'm using a non-purpose built tool, you got to get comfortable with prompting, as you just saw on the screen there. You got to figure out what works for you, what that flow looks like. I'd recommend once you figure out what things work best for you, being able to turn around and saying, all right, this works best for me, let me document it, and kind of build yourself a cheat sheet for what you want to do every time you look at the opportunities. As you can tell, I had to prompt it just to get it to an outline. So be mindful of that proposal writing workflow as you go through. Follow certain steps, figure out what steps work for you, and kind of follow off that. Keep in mind that there is what, and Matt had talked about RAG earlier, there's always going to be that RAG bias, meaning kind of what's the most recent tasks I've done or I've looked at, what's that most recent information I'm pulling from. I tell folks, try to get a lot of your content build and your development done in one sitting. I always find if I kind of leave whatever tool I'm working on, if let's look at commercial tool, and I come back in 2 days and I try to pick up where I left off, it might be a little bit of human error, but also I feel like the engine has an understanding of what's above, but it just doesn't have that same step-by-step processing kind of learning that it had when I first started. So I'm like, I should just time block whenever I want to do this live. Then of course, prompt reliant. We tell folks, you want to become an expert in prompting, get comfortable with it. Expert, subjective. We want to just be able to get in there and get what you want out of the tool. But if you're kind of time blocked and you just don't have the time to get really comfortable with that, be mindful of that as you use tools that are out there. And then of course, especially a big belief for us here at Unanet is being very mindful of the content that the engine's going to read from. We're going to talk about security here in a couple minutes, but being very focused on what is it going to be able to read from. If you can only read from 10 documents, you're extremely limited to what it can pull from. You want to make sure that it's able to read across the most relevant information. That's why I said the more that you can feed it as you go through the process, the more you'll keep that mind relevant and kind of focused on the key things you want to talk about to kind of go through as you're building that proposal response. Because it's always going to be the truth that no matter how great the tool is, being able to pull from your content and be able to respond with your information and tailor that to a solicitation or proposal response is going to get you the best output. You don't want generic. You want it to look and feel like your 20 years of experience, delivering cyber services for the Navy. You want that to read very true and through the entire proposal. So be very mindful of that when you're looking at a tool, making sure that it's got the information you need as you go through here. So something that we already talked about before here and kind of alluded to is the human in the loop piece. So if you connect with me on LinkedIn or kind of anyone really on our team at Unanet, we are kind of as AI forward as they come. We want to use AI wherever it can inside the SaaS tools that we provide and the tools that we're building. But we will always harp home the fact that AI is fantastic. But in order to get the engine to generate the way you want it to and build proposals the way you want it to and go after the right opportunities that are a good fit for you, you need the person in the loop that knows what good looks like to help train that engine. Meaning, just like Matt talked about when we talked about opportunity identification, is this a good fit opportunity? What is a good fit about it? Yes, a tool can go and pour through thousands of records and pull forward things that are relevant, but you've also got the opportunity to turn around and say, this is why it was relevant and this is why it wasn't relevant. And being able to train that engine becomes really important because you want it. No one's got a problem up front doing a little bit of that legwork of making sure that it's pulling the right information. But if you put in that legwork and it's not pulling that out, over time, people get frustrated. So I tell folks, when you're looking at tools and AI to help you find opportunities and really hone in on them, be really mindful that it's learning from whatever you give it. That's where that human in the loop becomes really important. Again, AI is fantastic. It's constantly evolving. It's probably one of the fastest moving technologies in recent memory. But it's also really important that as it's building and training and learning, that human in the loop is teaching it what is working, what is good. That's especially important, I'd say, since I spent a lot of my time on the proposal side, what a good proposal looks like. I tell folks, anybody can come in and say, write me a 20-page response, and I've got a lot of contracting officer friends that are like, our response volume is through the roof, and half of them are junk. I actually had someone who said, before I could even bid on the state and local contract, I actually got an alert that says, before I even get the docs, I have to promise I'm going to read them before I build a response. And that kind of just tells you kind of what's out in the marketplace right now is some folks are absolutely saying, hey, let's spray and pray. Let's just bid on everything. Let the tools do all the work. And if we win 1 out of 100 and it only took us 2 days to write 100 proposals, let's do it. We all know, especially in the GovCon space, that's not scalable. But in conjunction with AI, as you're using it and using it inside your organization, your expertise is what's going to make that great. Your past knowledge base to pull from, you training the engine on what good looks like for you and things like that are all really crucial elements to have in there to make sure that AI is working for you as an organization. If anyone tells you, click 4 buttons, you have a gold draft, or my AI tool is going to pull out all the best opportunities for you without you doing anything, be very skeptical because again, AI is maturing, but it's not perfect out of the box. You got to train it, you got to work with it, and it's going to learn from you. And as I say that, don't think of that as some cumbersome exercise. It's going to come along with you as you're doing your opportunities and your opportunity evaluation and things like that. But definitely you want to put in that time. If you're just logging in once a month and you don't like what you see, it's because you're not putting the effort in to really get that AI the way you want it to. And of course, purpose-built is where Unanet leans in heavy. And we're going to show some of that here in a sec. Meaning, all these tools use the ChatGPTs, the Claudes, the Geminis, the Groks, all that stuff kind of across to help do a lot of that processing. But because a lot of these tools are not purpose-built, you've got to have that long list of knowledge building every time you go to build a chat or whatever the case may be. So for us, and especially as we view the market, is there's a lot of things that you can do with AI to help build those purpose-built solutions for specifically for GovCons, right? It's got to know the FAR, especially as the FAR evolves. It's got to know how these solicitations are put together. It's got to know, how these solutions that you're proposing tie to overall mission and things like that. And that's really where we view kind of the market moving towards, is not just having these tools that are out there to chat with and throw in prompts, but ones where you can go in and not just be able to chat with it, but have it do that kind of business process augmentation, doing what I call the unfun things of many times proposal development or finding opportunities, doing a lot of that work for the user. So then that way you don't have to come in and put in 4 or 5 prompts to get one output that you'd like to share with your team. So for us, we definitely view, the market moving towards more of these purpose-built solutions inside of there. Again, using a lot of that great technology that already exists in the commercial tools, but securing things like your data and things like that, but also giving a solution that looks and feels like you. So with that, I'm going to show off some of our tools that we've built inside our organization here, keeping intact a lot of the best parts of AI tools that are out there, the commercial ones, but keeping in mind things like security, especially as I'm sure a lot of you all are like, man, it's what was it, November 10th, CMMC's live, we're all working through this together. My first priority with my IT manager or my IT provider is figuring out how we're securing this stuff. We tell folks that is paramount to, whatever tool you're evaluating, have those conversations, understand the architecture, understand where your data is going, and that's where those purpose-built solutions become really strong. So for us at Unanet, we brought these solutions in together to a greater offering for our customers to really focus on helping them, win work inside their respective marketplaces. So what I'm showing you here is a demo site of what we call Proposal AI. We saw about 18 months ago, we sat down with our customer base, a lot of them using our CRM technology to track opportunities, run capture activities against them, but they said, man, this is great, but now I've actually got to go build a proposal. This is not a lot of fun. I know commercial folks are using ChatGPTs and it's helping them streamline responses. We still need 3 writers and a volume lead and a book boss and all these different people. And they're like, it's slow. We'd love a solution that could help us really speed up our proposal response across the board. That's where Proposal AI came into play. So Proposal AI is a purpose-built platform that helps organizations streamline that proposal development process. It does those 3 great things that AI does. It helps you comb across your large pool of knowledge-based data. So all your past proposals, all your statements of work, all your contracts, your CPAR scores, things like that. It uses them, and you could also then chat like you would like a ChatGPT, but also use it for those business process augmentation pieces like I'm going to show you here. So inside of here, we definitely view it as not just a chat tool, but a pre-built workflow. So I'm going to click into one of these that's already done, giving you a pre-built workflow that you see across the top of your screen here. We like to use AI to do an automatic shred of the RFP, RFQ, RFI that you bring in there. So that way you don't have to hunt for your traditional CLNMs. Let the platform do something like that. And then that way, now you can then go and chat with that information. Are there things I want to know about this opportunity without having to hunt through all the docs? Maybe there's specific things I want to know about this opportunity, like is there eval criteria that's conflicting? Are there questions that I should be asking the government that, without me reading the 180 pages that it can pull up? Purpose-built tools will help you do this. Ours is designed to make the AI do the unfun task of shredding through that RFP and then putting the controls in the hands of the users so they can then chat across that. What information do I need to share back to my team? Is this something that I do want to bid on? What do I have to be cautious of inside of here? Think of this as replacing that traditional Control F inside of a PDF. Now you can chat with it, get the answers back and all the information you need for that specific opportunity. Now, in every AI conversation that we have, I always get folks that are like, well, if everyone uses an AI tool and we all write the same thing, the right solicitation, won't we all just put out the same output? And that's where purpose-built tools become really valuable too. For us, we call it our solutioning step. This is where the AI is reading the whole solicitation. It's figuring out not what are the 180 will shall statements, but what are the actual key things that separate company A from company B as they bid on this contract. How do you manage data? How do you manage your projects? Things like that. And helps you figure out how to differentiate from your competition by helping you take you through a solutioning step like you see here. And then probably the one that I like the best, because I've always had to build outlines in my career, is AI tools, and ours in particular, can help you actually build the outline in response to that solicitation. The way we've built them is hard-coded to read that solicitation and say, okay, there's 3 volumes that need to be submitted. Here's what needs to be in each volume. Here's all the requirements that need to be in there. So every one of these actually opens up to make sure that the user is able to not only build out a response that they want, but actually capture all those specific details of what needs to be included in each header. And again, the human didn't have to prompt, give me an executive summary, put the requirements in here, or read this reference material. Because it's a purpose-built tool, it's pulling from all those key things already for the user, and the user then gets to become more of that strategic, kind of business development person who can come in and say, okay, I like the structure, can I make it better? I like that we're in these requirements, but can I change this a certain way? I like this reference material, but can I change that to where I want it to be something different? So for us, we use AI to do a lot of those unfun mappings of build the outline, figure out what requirements need to be under each one, what documents should the engine be reading from, and use AI in that manner, so then that way you as the user can then turn around and say, all right, how do I make this better? How do I make us stand out? So again, using AI to do that manual task of outlining, so that way you can turn around and focus on the winning aspects of the response. And then of course, me personally, I'm so glad to be outside of Excel spreadsheets. I love when an AI does the work for me. I tell everybody, when it comes to compliance, the cool thing about AI, especially in commercial solutions, is you can actually build it so it doesn't miss anything. Meaning it can go through all those will shall statements, pull them up, it can read your content. In this case, we built ours to not only read the content, but tell you exactly where inside your headers you have it. Once that content's written, actually take you through what the content looks like and what's been written. So that way you can do that audit trail back and forth without having to pull up a spreadsheet, toggle back to documents, things like that. AI can do a lot of that lift for you. So again, you as the expert, that human in the loop, is confirming what's written, what's good, how that needs to be positioned, and all of that. And then of course, that writing of the proposal. I'm a huge fan of this piece, especially selfishly probably the way that we do it, but the way that we've laid this out here is because when I go to write a section back in kind of that exercise that I'd show you all earlier, that 4.4, I would typically tell the platform to say, hey, go write section 4.4 for me. Because we don't have that time block out or anything like that, I can actually have this tool write all the pages I need inside all the volumes I need on one screen that you see here. So that way, when a user's inside of here, they don't have to, kind of write each piece. The tool's going to write all that concurrently, task after task to write it. And we just brought on a new customer. They did a 250-page response. I was like, wow, this is a huge response, biggest one I've seen. But they could get that running, go evaluate more apps, come back in a couple minutes and have that whole thing written for them. And that's really cool. That takes you from having to prompt 47 sections and every header underneath and feed all that. So that's why we lean in towards purpose-built solutions, because we want you to be able to prompt and control the output, but also let AI do a lot of those unfun tasks that will save you that 40, 50, 60% of your time building out those proposal responses. And then of course, I'm sure we've got a few folks on the call here that are like, well, Josh, I still love chatting. I still love doing that. We've got our Champ tool. Inside our Champ tool, you're able to do exactly that type of work. If you want to, build out responses in here, if you want to come across your data to figure out maybe, kind of what type of work do we do, you've got that purpose built inside of here, all while keeping your data secure. It's not going to go train some master LM. It's not going to mix with customers. All that resides with you, and you're able to work inside of here as if you were inside a commercial tool or anything like that. So we're going to give a peek inside our purpose-built tool that we've got here inside of our platform. And again, it's one that what I love is, almost 100% driven by customer feedback. Hey, here's what we're doing. Here's how we're doing it, Josh. We'd love it if your tool did this. That is how we build our roadmap, because all of us are learning what AI can do and kind of where it can take things and improve across your business there. So in conclusion here, some of the key things that we want folks to take away as you go back to your team here and plan for 2026 and the years beyond is, have a good understanding of kind of the difference AI and RAG, what's inside of there, how it pertains to how you're interacting with these AI tools. Hopefully we shared some best practices. If you want more of them, if you got questions about them, Matt and I are very active on LinkedIn. We're going to throw up a QR code here in a second. Please feel free to reach out and say, hey, I'm doing this. I'm having trouble here. Those are honestly usually the best conversations. One, it lets me understand outside of my own bubble what other people are doing. But two, it also many times lets us share what we've learned back and forth. So hopefully you've got some best practices to take back to your team. But also feel free to reach back out with any other questions you might have. We're a big proponent of human in the loop. You're never going to hear us kind of really pitch AI without human in the loop, especially in GovCon. 20, 30-year expertise with capture managers, proposal managers, BD folks, executives, all that is what makes AI really powerful in your organization, and not just a tool with buttons in it. So we're always going to, lean in and say, don't just think AI is going to do everything for you. Let your expertise come in and drive that with you. And of course, there are some generics, as we talked about, there are some limitations with kind of overall LLMs. And then of course, why we lean in on kind of the purpose-built workflows inside of there. So what we recommend is get your library together. The cool thing about AI is it doesn't have to be perfect. If you're like, Josh, I can only put my winners in here, right? Put in all the most relevant proposals that you'd want your engine to learn from, meaning we've all lost proposals on price or key personnel or bid things that maybe are out of our wheelhouse, but we did an awesome write-up on how we did something technically. Use that. You want to feed the engine that, because what it's going to then turn around with is when it goes to write those technical solutions or whatever those write-ups are, it's going to pull from your best content. So get a tool that's going to be able to take in as much of your knowledge base as possible, and that can actually use it. Be very mindful of that and get in there, so that way whatever you're using, you can actually train that tool. Then of course, get comfortable with that prompting piece. How are you prompting? Which ones work for you? And again, your first prompt might be, read these docs and give me a summary. And that's perfectly fine. It's good to try those things out. It's good to get a good output. For those of us on the BD side, who typically pass off opportunities to capture a proposal, great opportunity to turn around and say, hey, before I pass this off, let me get a really nice write-up to share why. And if you're on the capture proposal side of things, you typically just get, past things. Now's a good time when you get past stuff to turn around and say, all right, well, let me give a write-up of how I view it and give it back to the BD person and say, hey, do we really want to go after this? Or, hey, what are our best past performances? So you get comfortable doing that. And of course, keep the human in the loop, share your best practices left and right, what's working with you. And then of course, build to those workflows. Prompting's great. I'm going to figure out which ones are best for you. But over time, you're going to want to say, hey, I don't want to have to put in 8 prompts to get my first outline. What are the workflows that I can build? So that's where get comfortable with the workflow piece, or look for a purpose-built tool to help you be able to do that. And that takes us to the end here. So I wanted to open up here for Q&A. I'm going to open up the questions chat again. Remember that the questions are in that chat space over there that we might want to cover off as we go through. And then Matt, if you wouldn't mind hopping back on, there's some questions that we had before the event that we want to cover off too before we dive in here. So Matt, I'll probably tee this one up for you. Of course, not surprised that this is one that we had. Security. Can you tell a little bit more about kind of why it's important to really kind of understand the security pieces when it comes to using commercial tools versus purpose-built ones?
Yeah, the first thing that I would always stress when someone asks about using a commercial large language model is you need to be using a paid version. If you're not using a paid version, you're just using ChatGPT, your information is being used to train the model itself. So the first thing that you need to do is to ensure that you are at least paying for a subscription. Looking at, I guess, the path forward, ChatGPT is right now in its FedRAMP certification process. Not sure when that's going to actually be complete. There is an IL5 API available, but if you were to go with a purpose-built solution like Unanet Proposal AI, you wouldn't have to necessarily worry about your data being leaked. We host everything on a private cloud, so all of your information that you pull into the solution is only going to be used within your own private cloud.
That was great, man. I appreciate that. That's I knew security would pop up first. It's kind of one that everyone's navigating now. So it's really important that kind of, as you're looking at these solutions, again, it is incredibly easy to load up your data into any of these tools. But I'd say it's from experience, it's challenging to figure out where it's going. So that's why I kind of lean towards those purpose-built solutions and be kind of mindful of where your data is going and what that looks like, especially for like competitive bids, things like that. We all know we want to keep our IP with our team here. Probably another one, Matt, that I'd gotten before the event. I don't think this person was able to attend, but they had shot over kind of opportunity sourcing and things like that. They've seen a couple other tools that have kind of scraped at scale and kind of did like keyword searching. Where does AI really play into that? And kind of, can you talk a little bit more about kind of the benefits of having it play a role inside that opportunity sourcing piece and that human in the loop kind of kind of a deeper level of what that looks like there?
Yeah, I think it was slide 6 or 7 of our presentation. There are a number of award sites out there. If you're a 1-person shop, 2-person shop, you're not going to be able to look at all of those opportunities. So you're going to be missing a lot of good opportunities that your firm should bid on a monthly basis. The good thing about modern technology and using a solution like Unanet Gov Intel, or even I'll plug the 300-pound gorilla in the space, so to speak, GovWin, is that they're going to be scraping these award sites for you, and using AI, understanding your business, they're going to be able to pull in the best opportunities for you. I think one of the things that's coming even more important, though, as we stressed before, is really highlighting the equitable projects, rather than just the projects you may win, but the projects that you actually might be losing money on. If you look at where the investment in this space is going, Y Combinator has probably thrown like 50 to 100 million in this space over the past year. They're looking at platform-based solutions, so not siloed AI solutions for market intel or siloed solutions for proposals. They're looking at what solution can a government contractor, small or large, run their entire capture process from opportunity identification to winning the award. Now, that's really important because throughout the opportunity lifecycle, when you're talking to these different contracting officers, having meetings, even collaborating on opportunities yourself, there's valuable data associated with that that won't be captured just by a siloed market intel solution. So I would say if you're looking for AI and market intel, you should also be looking for AI from capture, focusing from all of the data from start to finish, because that's just going to enrich all of the opportunity recommendations that it generates.
That's well said, Matt. I love that. It's we've seen. I come from the market intel space myself. I've worked for firms that tried to hack at the big gorillas in the space. Doing the scraping at scale is incredibly hard. Companies already know that. To comb through all those millions of records over tens of years to pull that information forward is challenging. But then actually being able to layer in the AI that gives you the right insights and the right output is super critical too. So I'd say when you go into these type of conversations and you're looking at different components of an overall platform, push whoever that vendor is on those specific pieces. How did you do this? Why is this? What input do I get in trying to train the engine as it's learning from me? Things like that. So don't be shy in asking those hard questions, and because it's something that you're going to deploy inside your org. Nothing's worse than buying a tool and say, hey, my team's off and running with it, and then maybe the year doesn't start the way you expected and no one's using it as much, and then all of a sudden May, June, July hit and you're like, oh, I really need to find more apps, or I need to use a purpose-built proposal tool, something like that, and you're just not comfortable in it. So ask the hard questions as you're evaluating. Get in it as soon as possible, as soon as you choose which one you want, and then start figuring out how it sits inside your business processes. Because if you wait to do that, when things get hard, you're always going to revert to life before the tool, and then you're going to get frustrated. I'm spending more money for a tool, but I'm still running the same process. It can become very frustrating. So adoption, implementation, very critical pieces as well when you're evaluating tools and partners to do this with. All right, so we are right at time here. I did want to throw up, if you guys have any other questions, please don't hesitate to drop them. Feel free, as we're wrapping up here, to drop them inside the question area here as well. But both of these are QR codes that connect you with us for any questions you might have. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Matt is really knowledgeable when it comes to the AI pieces that come in there. Don't be shy in kind of sharing over any questions you might have. But appreciate everyone that was able to attend this session. Again, East Coast folks, I know it's maybe a lunchtime session for you all. So I appreciate you setting aside time with us here. And please feel free to reach out to us with any questions you might have. We're all learning this together. We're all building solutions and figuring out what works best for our businesses. So even if it's just to share things that aren't working or that are working, we welcome those type of conversations. And again, thank you all for taking the time to attend this session, and we appreciate any questions that had come over throughout the life cycle of this. Thank you.